Let's open our Bibles this morning to the first book of Samuel. The first book of Samuel, as we progress in this series that we have been looking at, the life of David, that we have entitled The Man After God's Own Heart. There's a typo there in the sermon. It's not man after God's enemy. So it's man after God's own heart. So somehow there was a little typo there in your outline. The Man After God's Own Heart, the title of the series. We're looking at the life of David. And we have entitled this part of the series, Repaying Evil with Good. Repaying evil with good. How many of us have had people in enmity against us, in hostility against us? Have you had somebody in enmity against you? I think at some point or another, most of us, if not all of us, will have somebody that declares himself or themselves an enemy, in hostility against us. Have they done us wrong? Well, have we had people do us wrong in their hostility? And then the question for today is, how have we responded? How are we responding to the hostility, to the damage that the enemy seeks to inflict upon us? What is the state of our hearts towards these enemies? So more insightfully and more importantly, can we look at our hearts and ask ourselves, what is the state of my heart toward my enemy? Today I want to see how David dealt with his enemies and hopefully learn lessons for our lives based on how David dealt with his enemy, and hopefully also to hear the gospel again and to hear the gospel spoken to us and to see how God has dealt with us who were his former enemies. So let's open our Bibles to 1 Samuel 24 and let us read the chapter. Now it happened when Saul had returned from following the Philistines that it was told him, saying, "Take note, David is in the wilderness of En-Gedi." Then Saul took 3,000 chosen men from all Israel and went to seek David and his men on the rocks of the wild goats. So he came to the sheepfolds by the road where there was a cave. And Saul went in to attend to his needs. David and his men were staying in the recesses of the cave. Then the men of David said to him, "This is the day of which the Lord said to you, Behold, I will deliver your enemy into your hand, that you may do to him as it seems good to you." And David arose and secretly cut off a corner of Saul's robe. Now it happened afterward that David's heart troubled him, because he had cut Saul's robe. And he said to his men, "The Lord forbid that I should do this thing to my master, the Lord's anointed, to stretch out my hand against him, seeing he is the anointed of the Lord." So David restrained his servants with these words, and did not allow them to rise against Saul. And Saul got up from the cave and went on his way. David also arose afterward, went out of the cave, and called out to Saul, saying, "My lord the king." And when Saul looked behind him, David stooped with his face to the earth and bowed down. And David said to Saul, "Why do you listen to the words of men who say, 'Indeed, David seeks your harm'? Look, this day your eyes have seen that the Lord deliver you today into my hand in the cave, and someone urged me to kill you.